Welcome back to the Testudo Times Podcast. This week, due to some technical differences, we're going to be unedited, so let's hope that everything works smoothly. Now by Andrew Emmer. Dave Tucker is going to be joining us in a few minutes. Andrew, we're going to talk about football first at length, but, last night, we're recording this on Wednesday, last night Maryland took an Iowa State team on the road, playing in a very friendly Iowa State environment, and outplayed them. What are your feelings right now on Maryland basketball?
It's hard not to be over the moon right now. That was the best defensive performance the Mark Turgeon Maryland team has ever put together. I don't think they won the game because of offense. The offense was fine. I think they shot 44% from the field, made a bunch of threes, but it was the defense. They took Iowa State, who's a exceptional offensive team, one of the best offensive teams in the country, with one of the best offensive players in the country in George Niang, with one of the best point guards in the country in Monty Morris, with one of the best shooters in the country with Naz Long. Aaron Thomas is really good. Justin Thomas? I can't remember. Something Thomas, the white guy. He's an excellent player.
Well, there's also Bryce Early-Jones.
Yes, Bryce John Jones, who's an offensive force. Justin Hogue, who's a really, really good offensive big man. And they shut him down. They shot 29% from the field, which is the second worst under Hoiberg for Iowa State. And that partially because Iowa State was not hitting their shots, but they didn't get a lot of open shots. And Maryland made them work for their points.
Yeah, we've talked a bit about George Niang, because he, at least on the site, because he came into the game, he's Iowa State's leading scorer. He's one of the best technically skilled big men in the country. And Maryland shut him down to 10 points. I thought Michael Tchaikovsky in particular did a fantastic job using his length to frustrate Niang. But for me, I was actually more impressed by the fact that Melo Trimble went up against Monty Morris, who last year, as a freshman, set the NCAA record for assist-to-turnover ratio.
Monty Morris was injured, I think, 2 years ago. As a freshman, I think this is
as a freshman. 2 years. Okay, it was 2 years ago.
He's a sophomore now, but I don't think he played last year. It was a whole thing.
Well, regardless, coming into this year, I think he still had an even lower assist-to-turnover ratio, and Melo Trimble outplayed him. I mean, Melo Trimble didn't have a great game compared to Arizona State. He still had a very good game. He did kind of what Melo Trimble does, which is play patiently, pick his spots, put up double-digit points, which is what he's mostly been doing so far this season. But I think he frustrated Morris a lot defensively. And I think that really made a difference because Iowa State wasn't able to control the pace of the game in the way that they like to.
Hey, so our friend Dave Tucker is joining us now, and we were discussing the Maryland-Iowa State basketball match that occurred last night. I said I was very impressed with the defense. Pete made a great point about shutting down Monty Morris and George Niang. Just to add to that, Michael Tchaikovsky, who 3 games ago looked like he could barely stay on the court, was timid against Wagner, looked like a stud, and shut down a guy who might be the Big 12 Player of the Year and a first-team All-American. I thought that was absolutely incredible, a defensive performance by he is 20, so it's not like he's a kid, Michael Tchaikovsky. But it was a really mature defensive performance against a guy that's going to eat up a lot of really good defensive big men this year. So, Dave, what were you most impressed about last night?
Looks like Dave's having a bit of technical difficulties, so we're just going to continue on with that.
Unedited.
Andrew, unedited. Jared Nickens, I think, was another big takeaway for a lot of Maryland fans, coming through with 15 points. He did take 12 shots, but I think most notably with those 15 points, there was one stretch where Maryland wasn't doing so well offensively. Iowa State was able to kind of do what they wanted to do on that end, and Nickens came through with 8 straight points. He hit 2 3-pointers. Then he hit another runner in the lane, which he's been doing so much this season. Andrew, you watched all of these kids play besides Tchaikovsky in high school. What have you seen from Jared Nickens so far in his young Maryland that wasn't quite there in high school?
He's put on a lot of weight. really wiry in high school, as are most high schoolers. I mean, I heard someone say this the other day, but when you say that a freshman needs to put on weight to be a college body, like that is true of almost literally every single freshman in the country. You should get bigger when you're 17 to when you're 19 and 20 and 21. But he's gotten a lot bigger. He's gotten stronger. You can definitely tell that he's been coached up because he was a little bit of a gunner in high school. Took a lot of shots with guys' hands in his face on double teamed, kind of runners where he shouldn't be taking runners, 3-pointers where he should have put the ball on the floor. But he has really been able to pick his spots, and he's fearless. He's really impressive, and this is a guy who, at this time a little bit earlier than this time last year, last summer when he committed to Maryland, was not, was barely a 3-star prospect. Was a guy who was being offered by, Fordham, our friends Fordham, Hofstra, Oregon State was a pretty big offer for him. This is a guy from Pennsylvania who Penn State didn't even recruit. They had no interest in Jared Nickens. Not to pile on Penn State, but they squeaked past Cornell, who is a worse team than any team Maryland's faced this year, and they also squeaked by Akron. And
Akron's
they lost
all right, though.
Yeah, they lost a double overtime to Charlotte, who's pretty good as well. But I would venture to say that Penn State could use Jared Nickens when he's out here scoring 15 points on a top 15 team.
Yeah,
I got to get one Penn State shot in at least every show.
It's actually in your contract. I don't know if you know that.
It's true.
Hey,
Dave.
Dave's here. Dave, now we can hear you. What were you impressed by in the Iowa State win?
I just think it was a complete win for the team. I think it's the best I've seen Maryland run their offense since possibly when Grievous Vasquez was here. I think they played great defensively all around, which is very important for this team. I think their biggest defensive lapse potentially in that entire tournament was against Arizona State from the perimeter, but I think they did a great job containing a fantastic Iowa State team that most people thought, Maryland would not beat on Tuesday, and then I think they, beat them pretty well. I think at the end there, they kind of let them get back in the game a little bit, but I really think it was such a complete game for Maryland. The ball movement was so much good. It's just, you just haven't seen a Maryland team like this in so long. It was just, you're almost stunned to watch it now.
It was stunning. It was amazing. I mean, when they were in their half-court sets and they were just working the ball around the perimeter, going inside to Dodd, who would dish it out to, an open Des Wells, who wouldn't shoot, who put the ball on the floor, dish it out to an open Melo Trimble or an open Nickens, and they're always looking for the extra pass. Even Deion Wiley, who only played, I think, 8 minutes, hit his 1-3.
Yeah.
He's become lethal from the corner, which is a great skill to have, but if he's open the corner, he's going to hit it. We saw moments from basically every player on the team besides Des Wells, which was really weird. I mean, me and Pete were talking before we hit the record here that Trimble played like Andre Miller. I mean, he played like he was a 20-year NBA vet. He's patient, picks his spots, he shoots when he has, when he has to shoot. He passes when he has to pass. He defers. He'll be a decoy. He'll on a fast break, he'll dish it off. Sikorsky, was really good defensively. Dodd had some nice minutes. He has a little bit of foul trouble, but so it was tough for him. Even Graham had some nice early minutes. Obviously, Nickens, Wiley, player that was probably a net negative for Maryland was their best player, Des Wells. And I'm the biggest Melo Trimble fan that exists, but I'm not willing yet to say that Melo Trimble is Maryland's best player, because Maryland's best player is Des Wells.
Yeah, and I think that there were, Des Wells' 5 of 20 line definitely sticks out to you, but he rebounded very well in the game. I think it's worth pointing out. Maryland, even with the improved play of DeMonte Dodd and Michael Sikorsky, those players aren't quite great at the defensive boards yet. Both of them, I think, have shown a lot of promise offensively, getting the right position and using their length. But on the defensive boards, Des Wells and Melo Trimble and Rashad Pack, strangely enough, those are the three that have really come up as guards.
Very good rebounding guards.
Yeah. And they really impressed in that fashion. And Wells has been making some of the shots that he needs to. That 5 of 20 obviously hurts. But I think, like you and I talked about, Andrew, Maryland's offense, they were moving the ball around well. They weren't finding that many open shots. And I think late in the second half,
which made the performance all that more impressive because they weren't just hitting open shots.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to work for their buckets, and I think that they did a very good job doing that while also limiting their turnovers, which has always been a problem in the past, and we feared that would be a problem with so many young players this season. And I think that's one of the most impressive things when you look at Maryland's roster this season is you have all these young players who are holding on to the ball and making efficient choices with the ball.
And just think about all the people that Maryland lost to transfer. I mean, especially on the rebounding side that you were just talking about. I mean, I thought when Charles Mitchell left, the rebounding component of his game was going to be something really hard for Maryland to make up, and they've made up for it with their front court, but they've also made up for it with their guards, which I think is really impressive.
Wells and Layman have been really, really good rebounding the ball so far this year. Layman, we barely talked about the Arizona State game, but his rebound and where he jumped above the hoop to get that rebound at the end of the game was what won the game for Maryland. Arizona State was bigger than Maryland. Iowa State wasn't. So it's not completely surprising. It is surprising for those of us that watched Michael Tchaikovsky 3 games ago and watched DeMonte Dodd attempt to play basketball last season. He really, I came into this year having basically zero faith in any Maryland big man. That was my biggest thing coming into the season, and but it's not surprising with the strides that they've made and their length and athleticism that they were able to dominate Iowa State. Saying that now and thinking about what I thought about this team even 2 days ago sounds weird coming out of my mouth, but I wasn't surprised during that game. But Arizona State is bigger than Maryland.
Yeah.
And when Layman was just able to sky those guys and make a rebound to save the game, that was really impressive. But back to Des Wells. He had a really bad game offensively, but I do understand the thought process that he was going through. He basically did the same thing against Arizona State. He had a really bad first half and had to win the game for Maryland at the end. Melo, it was a 31 points, which we will get to. If I'm on the podcast, we will talk about Melo's 31 points. But
we better.
He kind of won the game for Maryland, but I really thought Dez's play at the end was what put him over the hump. Remember, Wells, most of Melo's points came in the first half, and then in the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of the second half. In the middle there, when it was really a back and forth game, that's when Wells took over. So, his play, and he was kind of trying to do the same thing against Iowa State. The problem was they already had the game won against Iowa State, whereas against Arizona State, that he had to win the game. They already had the game won, and he just had to not lose it.
Right.
I don't think that he is used to that, which it didn't happen last year.
We're not
last year he had to win games. I wasn't used to it. I was all for him, maybe going a little ISO and trying to, make it a 15, 17-point game. But he wasn't. His shots just weren't falling, and there were some bad shots, but there were also some good Wells shots that just weren't falling.
Yeah, I think talking about the Arizona State game a bit, I think what stood out to me there is, with Iowa State, we knew coming in Maryland was going to be matched up against a team that is projected to be better than Maryland. I think that was safe to say. With Arizona State, not really. It's hard to make projections about who's better or not because matchups come into play. But Arizona State was basically a team that Maryland was supposed to be better than, but performed some matchup difficulties for the Terps with Jacobson in the middle. He's a big presence. He's kind of their major key on offense. And Maryland, I feel, was able to do a very good job limiting what he did both on the boards and scoring. And I think that was the difference in the game. It's easy to forget Maryland trailed for almost that entire game. But it never.
They trailed by close to 10 at one point.
Yeah, to me though, at least watching it, it never really felt that way. It felt like Arizona State got off to a really hot shooting start, And then from there, Maryland kind of controlled the game and just chipped away at the lead. I don't know if other fans felt this way, but while watching the game, I always felt kind of confident Maryland was going to win. I thought that Maryland was playing better than Arizona State was. I felt that it was likely that Arizona State would stop hitting an ridiculous amount of three-point shots, and they did. And that's what happened at the end of the second half. Arizona State's shots stopped falling. Maryland's continued at their steady rate. Maryland continued to get to the line, and they were able to take the win.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. There was actually almost 0 point in each game when I thought Maryland was going to lose, which is a really weird feeling because somewhat famously last year, going in a few games, especially the NC State game on the road, I basically called the shot on who was going to beat Maryland. It was that backup guard who I don't even remember his name, that seventh man that NC State had to fill something up for T.J. Warren.
That almost happened with Gilling at Arizona State. He had an incredible game.
Yeah, it was. He had like the game of his career. But yeah, I mean, Maryland is going to be susceptible all year to teams that have shooters like that. Guys who can just, it doesn't matter if you are playing good perimeter defense, which Maryland I still don't think plays good perimeter defense. I think they play adequate perimeter defense, but I don't think Dad's a really great perimeter defender. I think Layman can be. I think Pack has been good, and I like the potential of the freshman, especially Wiley, who has these long arms that he is really able to bother guys on the outside. But I'm not confident in their perimeter defense. So I think that there will be times this year, because Maryland's not going undefeated this year. I will guarantee that. Where someone's going to burn them from deep and they're going to lose the game because of that, and perhaps even a game that they're not supposed to lose. I have bad nightmares of DJ Newbill on Penn State beating Maryland, which would be unacceptable.
Yeah, I was about to kick you off the podcast for just saying that.
But yeah, it was two very different games, but two games that I was pretty confident in Maryland throughout the game once the game had started. We should go back to the Arizona State game because Romello Trimble, a guy who I, not to toot my own horn, but I will a little bit, have been talking up for about a year and a half now. Who one of my first assignments working for Testudo Times was going to watch him in high school against St. John's School when O'Connell played St. John's, and I've been a big fan of his for a long time. He scored 31 points on 11 shots. It would be hard to score 31 points on 11 makes. He scored 31 points on 11 shots. As I said to people before we started recording, if James Harden or Chris Paul or LeBron James had scored 31 points on 11 shots, Grant Land or Bill Simmons or Mike Prada from SB Nation would write an 800, 900 word article gushing over the efficiency of that performance. Mel Trimble is 18 years old and was playing his fourth collegiate basketball game. I don't really have any words to talk about how awesome that was, Pete.
Yeah, no, he was incredible. I mean, Melo was very efficient from three, but obviously the easiest way to get to 31 points on 11 shots is to get to the free throw line with consistency and make it from there. And Melo Trimble has a terrific free throw stroke, and he knows how to get to the line to use it. And so if Maryland can continue to get to the line at a high rate throughout the rest of the year, they have such a guard-heavy team, such a shooting-heavy team, that really benefits them when they're able to get teams into foul trouble.
He's really adept at playing fouls. He's really.
How about Melo at the line at the end of the game making those free throws? I mean, he was did not care whatsoever that the game's on the line, and they just swished right in. Did not seem to bother him whatsoever.
Are we fully in our Melo gushing portion of the podcast? Can we go all out?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
His attitude during a game. This is the kid who has been dreaming of playing for Maryland for his entire life. Claims he watched the 2002 championship game, which seems unlikely because he would have been like 5, but whatever. 5-year-olds watch basketball games. I want to believe him.
Yeah.
No, he would have been like 5, 6, I think probably. I think it was like 1995, something around there. Anyway, this kid has been dreaming of this his entire life, is finally here, has all this pressure on him. Articles written in the Diamondback, articles written in the Washington Post, articles written in the Baltimore Sun, national articles, John Rothstein calling him the most important freshman in the country.
Yeah.
Very clearly, all the pressure's on his shoulders. And when he hits shots to bring Maryland, up a point with 2 minutes to go, or shooting free throws to beat a ranked team, or scoring 31 points, or just being on fire, his facial expression does not change. It has never changed. And this has happened in high school too. When he hit a few game-winning shots in high school, and the game I watched him, his team was down 8 with like a minute and a half left, and he hit 2 threes and 2 free throws to tie the game up, and came within 3 inches of hitting a half-court shot to win the game. His facial expression never changed. He barely smiles. He doesn't really just stands there and hits shot after shot and acts like, yeah, this is what I should be doing. This is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, the freshmen, all of them appear, except for maybe Tchaikovsky, to have a tremendous amount of confidence and a shooting ability to back that up. And that's a great combination to have for your young players, especially, I think, with Dion Wiley and Jared Nickens, Maryland has 2 players who can come off the bench and make shots. That's not something Maryland's had under Mark Turgeon. They haven't, and even before, for a while under Gary Williams, they didn't have any bench shooters.
Yeah,
Cliff Tucker was kind of as close as it was.
Yeah, I was going to say Cliff Tucker and a little bit of Adrian Bowie when he was a bench player were the last time Maryland had a guy off the bench that could score like 15 points if needed.
Except, sorry, we forgot Logan Ehrenhalt because he did that once. But he had that
23.
Yeah, he had that tremendous game. But Logan Ehrenhalt with a tad more explosive ability.
And more than one facet of his game.
Yeah, precisely. So moving on from Arizona State, moving on from Iowa State, Maryland has 2 more games this week before what could be a top 25 matchup with Virginia next week.
Could be a top 20.
That's next. Could be top 20. It depends if Maryland is able to blow out VMI and Monmouth with authority. For those wondering about those 2 teams, neither are very good in terms of where they rank on the scale of Maryland's other cupcakes. It's kind of in between. They're better than Wagner and Central Connecticut State. They're worse than Fordham. So those are games Maryland should win pretty handily. We'll be interested to see how exactly that turns out. But Maryland has an opportunity here to be a pretty highly ranked team ahead of that Virginia game.
I'll point out my father-in-law went to Monmouth, and I'm actually heading up there for Thanksgiving right now. And I believe Monmouth lost to Towson last night. So,
well, we can't allow that.
Well, Towson's stealing all of Maryland's players, right?
Yeah, it's true. In football and basketball alike.
Every student ever to Towson, these are just the facts. But yeah, no, and it's really actually I'm extremely excited for the Virginia game. I can't imagine they're going to lose to Monmouth or VMI, although this is Maryland sports and we're feeling really good right now. So they're going to be within 5 at halftime of one of those games, almost assuredly. But if this is what I think it's going to be, and it's going to be number 6 or 7 Virginia coming into number 20 or 23 Maryland for the first real home game of the year, that's going to be just an absolutely incredible environment, or it should be an incredible environment. People will be back from Thanksgiving break. I think it's on Wednesday. I think it's a week from today.
And I think what makes it important too is just with these wins over Arizona State and Iowa State, Maryland has certainly 2 top 100 victories on their resume. Probably 1 top 25, but definitely 1 top 50 in Iowa State. And so the game against Virginia, it has a lot of implications because Virginia's a top team. It's a rivalry game. You're doing the Big Ten ACC Challenge, but it's not the same scenario would have been if Maryland didn't do so well in the CB Hall of Fame Classic, because Maryland now has begun their tournament resume to the point where they just have to perform well in conference play to get in.
Yeah, Maryland is at the point now, and in the past few years, where Maryland is not either beaten up on nobodies in the out of conference or lost to the only good teams they played in the out of conference.
Right.
We were talking going into conference play. Oh, they need to win 12 games. They need to do this. They need to get some upsets. Right now, I mean, assuming they win all the non-conference games they should win, even if they lose to Virginia and Oklahoma State,
Which looks good. Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's fine. I mean, they're pretty good. They're right around Maryland and Ken Palm. They really kind of only need to go about 500 in conference to make the tournament. I think that this team is capable of doing much more than that. At least so far, it looks that way. It looks like they're maybe a top 4 or 5 team in the Big Ten. I think. I mean, they already have the best win of any Big Ten team by far, unless you think highly of Oregon, in which I don't. But the 3 best games so far for Big Ten teams have been this game against Maryland. Indiana beat SMU, but then lost to Eastern Washington. So.
Right. Indiana, you have no idea what to make of them.
And then Michigan beating Oregon. And they're going to be better. I mean, Duke, Wisconsin is going to be a massive game, and there's going to be plenty of other big-time games coming up. But it's nice that Maryland already has 2 teams that will be on their resume. And Arizona State is going to probably be a bubble team at best. And maybe not even that, but it's still probably a top 80 win, which is Maryland had, I think, 2 of those last year. I think Virginia and Providence would have been their only, I think, top 80 or so. RPI is what they actually care about, but what the tournament cares about. But 2 top 80 teams, and that's really exciting. Good game. I'm a little bit nervous about that game just because we see how Trimble and these freshmen have played when, not that there wasn't a lot of pressure, but they weren't home really, or they were in empty gyms basically at Xfinity Center. But they're going to be in front of the first time in front of a packed Xfinity Center with a newly revitalized Maryland fan base. I assume that that's going to be a well-attended, a sellout game.
If our comment section is any indication, Maryland fans feel very differently right now.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be a big game. It's going to be. It's going to be a game that probably has a little bit of national attention, just because it might be a top 25 or top 20 matchup against a team that Maryland beat last time they played them in Virginia, and against a player that Maryland fans don't particularly like in Justin Anderson. I worry a little bit that the young team and even Dez, because apparently Dez is prone to forcing it a little bit, I'm worried about how they're going to react, because it's possible that they're really going to be forcing it a lot. But I thought that they might be doing that against Iowa State and Arizona State too, and that was basically a home game for Iowa State. Mm-hmm. And they performed incredibly adequately. So it's going to be a really interesting game, a really, really interesting game.
What, Andrew, would you say is a realistic ceiling for this team this year? It's easy to talk about next season when Robert Carter Jr. comes aboard. All these freshmen are. Did we cut out?
No, I'm still here. Are you still here?
Yeah. All right. So I was asking, what you think that the ceiling is, a realistic ceiling is for this team this year. It's easy to talk about next year with Robert Carter Jr. Being a part of the team. Jake Lehman, assuming he comes back as a senior, all the freshmen a year older. But for this season, Maryland's starting to put it together, but they're still young. Is a Sweet 16 run on the table? Is it possible they go even deeper than that?
Here's where I kind of differ from a lot of basketball fans. I don't look at teams in terms of can they make the Sweet 16 or will they make predicting, because the NCAA tournament is such a crapshoot. You can be a great team and lose to Mercer. You can be a really bad team and, not a really bad team, because really bad teams don't really make it, but you can be Stanford and go to the Sweet 16 last year, or Tennessee, I think, went to the Sweet 16 last year. So it really, it's not about, for me, it's about what what number seed you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Maryland, I think basketball fans in general, college basketball fans should look at, and I'm going a little bit of a tangent here, but should kind of judge their season differently than they judge their NCAA tournament season. Because you can have a really, really successful, really good season and lose in the first or second round of the tournament. Those exist. So getting back to what you said, it's really hard to say because I'm feeling really good about this team right now. They just beat a team that many predicted could be a sleeper Final Four team, a potential one of the best teams in the country. So it's hard to even give a ceiling to this team because they've just started playing together. They are in the first, fifth or sixth of their season. Melo Trimble, I made a joke on the Testudo Times Twitter account that he's played 40% of his college games so far have been played in the CBE Classic, and he was the MVP of the tournament. That was 40% of his college games.
Yep.
And he's already scored 31 points, and he's already shown his ability to lead. So, I mean, this is a team that could be a top, definitely could be a single-digit seed if they kind of keep it together. And injuries are always an issue, obviously. And Maryland is not very deep at some positions. If Melo Trimble gets injured, they're screwed. If Layman gets injured, they're screwed. So this could be a single-digit seed team. This could be a top 5 team in the Big Ten. If everything clicks, this could be a top 3 team in the Big Ten. This could be a team that, and if we want to get into the NCAA tournament, this could be a team that goes to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. I mean, they have that kind of ceiling. I think a reasonable expectation at this point is that they're going to have some lumps, and they're probably going to end up, in the 7 to 10 seed, 7 to maybe 12 seed range. And we still have to remember that the one and true goal of this Maryland basketball season is to get to the NCAA tournament.
Just to make it.
Just make it. That's all they need to do.
Yeah.
And because if they make it, and if they have if they make it, and if they don't lose people to the draft or to injury or to transfer, which is still a possibility, we can't ever write it off. With Robert Carter Jr. and only really losing Smotrich and Wells and Pack, I guess John Graham. But this could be a team that is picked to be, a top 15 team preseason next year, and it's way too early to say. There's still a lot of recruits to out there. I would have to imagine Diamond Stone was watching that game and saying they took a kid who doesn't speak English, barely speaks English, and was intimidated by Wagner, and he's out here shutting down George Niang. And it took DeMonte Dodd, who was a dominating 6-foot-tall dudes on the Eastern Shore and could not stay on the court last year, and he's swatting baskets and scoring around the rim and spinning and passing. This is a really attractive place for a recruit to come right now, assuming they keep going. I mean, this is a young team that plays an exciting brand of basketball, that's smart, that likes each other. It's a really exciting moment for Maryland basketball right now, and it could all come crashing down with at any moment. But if you get into this, then don't even bother getting into sports.
Right. That is the thing, because this is on the upswing. It is very rare for that to culminate in everything you want it to, but this is one of those enjoyable moments. Everything is going in the right direction for Maryland basketball, and I think, although this is more arguable, for football as well. So let's make that transition quickly. I think much like the goal for Maryland basketball coming into the season is make the NCAA tournament, the goal for Maryland football was to win at least 7 games. They won 7 last year in the ACC. This year in the Big Ten, there was expected to be a step up in conference competition. Obviously, Michigan and Penn State aren't quite what they usually are, but those are still talented rosters that play very good defense in hostile environments, and Maryland beat them. Maryland's at 7-4 now. They're a heavy favorite to become 8-4, beating Rutgers this weekend, and that would be a 3rd straight season that Randy Edsall has increased their number of wins from year to year since he's taken over?
Penn State and Michigan might be down, and they certainly are down, but I am fairly confident that they are better than Wake Forest and Virginia Tech, and maybe not Boston College, but definitely Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, NC State.
Yeah.
Maybe Virginia, probably Miami. A lot of teams in Maryland will be playing in the ACC, so this was a step up in schedule. I think that's unquestionably true.
And to top it all off, I mean, the ACC has Florida State. The three best teams in the Big Ten by far this year, and each of them had a pretty easy time with Maryland. So I think Maryland has established itself as probably, in my opinion, the fifth best team in the Big Ten this season. I think that they're behind Minnesota and ahead of Nebraska, to be honest. But that I think is more up in the air.
I still don't know if they're better than Nebraska.
I think that's up in the air. I still don't think Minnesota's that good. I think that the fact that Nebraska let Minnesota beat them and some of the other performances they've had this year, I think I don't know about who's better. I know that on a neutral site, I think it would be a close game. I think that Nebraska has not played very well this season. I think they have an excellent running back, an excellent running quarterback, and an excellent defensive lineman, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, before we move on, we have a little bit to talk about with football, but I love being in the Big Ten. I love that Maryland's in the Big Ten. I'm really enjoying it, but it is an interesting thought that if it was the exact same team, the way it's performed, if they were still in the ACC, this could have been a 10-win team. I really think they could have won 9 or 10 games in the regular season, the ACC this year.
The ACC is not good. I mean, Florida State is a good team, but beyond that, there's really not much going on there. I'm not high on Clemson. I think Louisville's pretty good. And that's about it. It's pretty good as well. I think that they might beat Florida State. But we're getting off topic there. With the football team, big matchup this weekend against Rutgers, offensive coordinator Ralph Friedgen. Andrew, in most of Maryland's Big Ten home games, 2 out of 3, they've sold out Byrd Stadium. The other one, Iowa, they were a few thousand seats short. Do you expect a sellout for Rutgers with Ralph Friedgen?
No. Mostly because it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're not going to get that sort of student section. I do think that there is more excitement about Maryland football than there has been in a while. No one cares, really, that Michigan and Penn State are down. Just that Maryland is a program that just beat Michigan and Penn State on the road. And that's exciting the fan base, and it's exciting recruits, and it's exciting a lot of people. But I think there will be a better turnout than there would have been if they had even lost one of those Penn State or Michigan games. I think they'll get 45,000 or so, but I don't think Maryland's at the point yet where they are going to sell out a Thanksgiving game against Rutgers.
Yeah, well, it's the rivalry game,
I want it to be a rivalry because I want to be the snooty part of the rivalry that says, "Oh, this isn't a rivalry. We beat them all the time. Oh, not our rival." I want to be that side of it. So I hope that it turns into that.
That would be interesting. I think that this Friedgen matchup is going to be an interesting one. I know that there are still parts of the fan, and I would negatively to some of his comments on Sports Junkies, although I think any comments on Sports Junkies should be taken with a heaping grain of salt. For those not familiar, Friedgen jokingly said he would burn his diploma after the whole Maryland debacle. I'm interested to see what kind of game he calls against Maryland. Rutgers has had some interesting games offensively so far this season. I think that they could give Maryland some trouble. What do you expect from the game?
Well, I expect. Is Gary Nova still the quarterback?
He is.
Yeah, so Gary Nova will be throwing the ball against William Likely, and that'll likely end poorly for Gary Nova because Will Likely is a freak, and I'm probably more confident than I should be going to this game. I just don't think Rutgers is good.
Yeah.
They have performed.
It's hard to. It's really hard to.
You're breaking up a little bit, Pete.
Now, but I was going to say it's hard to think Rutgers is all that good. You know, they're a bowl team just like Maryland is, but they've gone about it in a very different way. I would say I don't think there's any point that Rutgers has really impressed, especially defensively. That's the thing. You know, Rutgers has scored points to stay in games, but they have a really poor defense, and Maryland had just faced 6 top 20 defenses in a row, 4 top 10 defenses in a row. So to be able to recover from that and face off against Rutgers, that gave up 45 to Michigan State, 42 to Nebraska, 38 to Washington State, 25 to Howard. This is maybe a more exciting opportunity for C.J. Brown.
Yeah, and if Maryland fans are disappointed in the way that Maryland's performed against the upper crust of the Big Ten, Rutgers has been awful. They've been disgustingly bad against good teams.
To be fair to Rutgers, who lost to Penn State, beat Michigan, they've had to face the 4 best teams probably in the Big Ten if you're excluding Minnesota just talent-wise. Ohio State 56-17, Nebraska 42-24, Wisconsin 37-0, Michigan State 45-3. They have not really shown up.
That's 25 total points against the top 4 teams.
Right, and they're making a bowl game because they went 4-0 in non-conference play. They played Washington State, Howard, Navy, and Tulane. They cleaned up that, and if Maryland wins this Saturday, they'll have gone 2-6 in Big Ten play and make a bowl game.
Oh, they beat Nick Montana.
They did.
That's an accomplishment that you can't. That's one of the Montanas. Unquestionably so. He's one of the Montanas.
We'll have more on Rutgers this week from Alex as our coverage continues of that season-ending showdown. But I have a question for you, Andrew. Some fans have been asking about, obviously coming into this time of the year, you start thinking about what bowl game Maryland's going to play against. Last season, Maryland played Marshall, who has not lost since that game was announced. There's an opportunity with the move to the Big Ten and with Maryland's successful season this year for them to play a New Year's Day bowl against an Auburn or an Ole Miss. Both those teams have flaws. They're not Alabama. They're both teams that could be beatable, but that Maryland will likely lose to pretty heavily. I can counter with the recruiting perspective in a second, but just as a fan, this has been kind of a discussion in our comment section. Would you prefer Maryland to play one of those big or play a team that maybe they have a better chance of beating in a smaller bowl?
I'm going to cheat on the question and say I'd rather they play a like Stanford or USC in like the Foster Farms Bowl or Holiday Bowl. Because I want Maryland to play a team that is a real team. I mean, any bowl team, I guess, is a real team, but I want a Power 5 team because I believe that will be the first time since 2007 that Maryland's played a Power 5 team in a bowl game. I think that was Purdue. I might have my times mixed up, but they played Marshall. Before that, they played Eastern Carolina, and before that, they played, granted, Colin Kaepernick, but they played Nevada. So I really do want Maryland to play a game that non-Maryland fans are gonna watch. South Carolina would be a fun game because I think Maryland can beat South Carolina. Stanford, I think Maryland could beat Stanford. I think Maryland could maybe beat USC. USC is a weird team. They don't have a lot of depth, and who knows what their motivation is going to be. It would be fun just the lead up to play Auburn or perhaps Florida or what was the other choice there? There's another one there. Right?
It was Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. That would be a fun build up because it's just like talking yourself into, oh my God, what if they beat Ole Miss? How cool would that be? But those probably end in very poor games. Although a lot of bowl game comes down to motivation.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss
Maryland
and Auburn. Ole Miss and Auburn are both looking at ends of seasons that are fairly they were both in the top 4 at one point.
Yeah.
Pretty disappointing ends to the season. So Maryland could maybe sneak up on them.
Maryland would have the motivation advantage, and just from a recruiting perspective, recruits, by and large, I mean, obviously it differs from kid to kid, would much rather see. It's much easier to sell Maryland playing Auburn, no matter
Pete's
what
breaking up a little
happens,
bit,
because you
so
can say to those kids, because I can hear Andrew.
all right,
Andrew, where
Pete,
was I?
you were saying, and you're making a great point that it's for recruiting. It's an easier sell playing Auburn or South
Basically, you can
Carolina or
say
Ole Miss.
we've been given this situation against a top team on a top stage. Maybe we didn't take advantage of it, but with you, we could. And that's, I think, a much easier
Yeah.
sell than to say,
And you say,
come beat Western Michigan with us again.
yeah,
I mean, that's it's a much better alternative.
you can say to, and we don't need to name names for recruits, but you can say to a local star offensive lineman or a local star quarterback or a local star wide receiver, you don't have to leave home to play against South Carolina or Auburn
Right.
or Michigan or Penn State or Ohio State or Wisconsin. You can stay here. You can go to the Big House. You can host a big rivalry with Penn State, which it looks like it's happening. You can go play in Madison. You can go play in Lincoln. And then if we have our good season, which if you come here, we'll have our great season.
Yeah.
We are going to go play. We're not going to go play in the Military Bowl against Marshall or Rice. We're going to go to San Francisco or San Diego or Pasadena or where's the Gator Bowl? Is it in Gainesville?
Yeah. No,
Well,
I think it's in Tampa or Orlando or somewhere, not
Yeah.
Gainesville.
Yeah, wherever. We're going to go there, and we're going to play these teams. And, by the way, the Tax Slayer Bowl really bothers me because the Gator Bowl is a legit bowl. But the Tax Slayer Bowl is the Gator Bowl, but it sounds stupid to say Tax Slayer Bowl.
It's like a not legit bowl in any way, shape,
But
or
it's a
form.
really legit bowl.
Yeah, and I think that those opportunities, with the win over Michigan, those recruits, the 2016 class, I've been talking about that a lot. I'm going to keep talking about that because there is a strong chance Maryland's 2015 class kind of whimpers a bit, although their strong
Just like
finish to the
basketball.
season. Yeah, their strong finish to the season has, helped out with the remaining targets they have on the board. But the 2016 class has the potential to be a program-changing event. I think even more so than in basketball. They have so many prospects just basically at every position in either Maryland, D.C., New Jersey, Pennsylvania that they're really in on and are all really tight. And they're talking about Maryland more now with those wins over Penn State and Michigan. Being able to, you can tell just by what the kids are saying, what the coaches are saying. They're basically saying, look, this is our first Big Ten year, and we won at Penn State, we won at Michigan. Think about what we can do with you. We never had guys like you on our team before. Come to Maryland. You're going to have the same facilities you would in the SEC once they're finished. You're going to be able to play those big-time teams in bowl opportunities, and you're going to be able to stay at home and do it in front of your family, in front of your friends. And I think that's really working. And to be able to combine that pitch that they've always used with a better football conference with the Big Ten, the better opportunities it brings, and all the other amenities that Maryland has added, they should have a strong class next year as long as everything kind of stays on course.
One last question, then we'll wrap up. But there's a lot of talk on Twitter, and I'm not sure how common this kind of stuff is, but about this big group of 2016 players who all seem to be friends, even though not the ones that all go to the same school. But there's a group of a dozen or so.
Yeah.
That seem to be really tight and all 3, 4, 5 stars, really high quality players. Is this a situation where it's a boom or bust, it's an all or nothing? Or do you think that those guys end up breaking up and going to different schools?
I think, most of the time you end up seeing it as they go to different schools. These guys have been particularly vocal about how much they want to stay with each other. But this is a way people are much more likely to be vocal about that when signing. Easy to say I want to go play with my friends in college, but then once you start really looking, it's the same as for any high schooler. I want to go with all of my friends to college, but then you guys have different interests. You look at the schools, different things appeal to you. The thing is, these people all want to play football, so it's more likely that they all want to end up at the same place. But it's hard. Maryland has the one unifying factor of being near all of them, but they're going to have to continue to really just hammer it home to get all of them. I don't think it's boom or bust. I think there's boom potential. I think there's bust potential, but there's definitely potential in between.
Well, this was fun, and this was one of the better singular points of Maryland sports in I can't remember how long. It's been a fun few weeks. We didn't even talk about the facilities. We talked enough about that on the site. Check out all our great articles about the new facilities. They're going to be ridiculous. They're going to be the best in the country, perhaps. And they're going to look cool.
They're definitely going to be among the best. We don't know exactly how they rank with the ACC. Yeah.
Uncle Kevin is not that he hasn't paid dividends yet, but it's really starting. This is a big stamp on the program. But it's a really fun time, and we're going to post this, and Maryland's almost certainly going to lose to Monmouth because that's Maryland sports.
There we go.
Well, for Pete Volk, I'm Andrew Emmer, and Dave Tucker, who was in and out. He you know what? He's like Deion Wiley. He came in for about 8 minutes. He hit his shot.
Yeah.
He went to the bench. He's a great seventh man, is what he is.
He's always on the move, just like Deion Wiley.
Yeah, he's always on the move. It is. You guys should see. So we do this on Google Hangout, and then I rip the audio and post it up. But Dave is always walking on his phone when he does it, and he wonders why the sound doesn't work and he craps out all the time. Just sit down, dude. Just chill out. It's holiday.
Well, have a good Thanksgiving, everyone. We will see you at the next pinnacle moment of Maryland sports.
In 4 years.
In 4 years.
Bye-bye.